Welcome, everyone, to this discussion on minerals and society. I want to start by being very clear about something. This lecture is not anti technology and it's not anti mining. Every single one of us, including me, is benefiting from minerals right now. This computer, the microphone, the lighting, the building you're in, all mineral dependent. What this lecture is about is balance, understanding both what minerals give us and what they cost, especially to the people who never get to enjoy the benefits. Modern society does not exist without minerals. That's not an option, it's a physical reality. We often talk about natural resources in abstract terms, but minerals are the literal foundation of infrastructure, medicine, communication, and energy. The question isn't whether we use minerals, the question is how they're obtained and who pays the price. Let's think about minerals in our daily life. In a typical day, you start off in the morning with your breakfast. You might put a little salt on there. That's halite. Then you go and brush your teeth. It probably has fluoride in it. And don't want to get all funky, so you use some body powder, probably has talc in it. And then as your day progresses, you check your cell phone, which has computer chips, silicon, and that comes from quartz. The car you drive to school in, the aluminum, comes from bauxite. And all the wiring, it's copper, is mined from chalcopyrite. And in the evening, you go home, go inside your house, and your walls are probably made of drywall with a mineral gypsum. And if you have the old incandescent light bulbs still, there's tungsten filaments in them from wolframite. Every time you use a phone, drive a car, turn on a light, or go inside a building, you are interacting with minerals extracted somewhere by someone. Most of us never see where those minerals come from, and that invisibility is part of the problem. Let's just take a moment to kind of look at some of the groups of common rock forming minerals. First, the most abundant are our silicates. They are based on silicon and oxygen. Examples would be quartz, feldspar, mica, and what's pictured on the slide, garnet. Carbonates, they contain carbon, oxygen, and some type of metal, and common ones, calcite and dolomite. Oxides, on the other hand, they're a metal combined with just oxygen, such as hematite and magnetite. Sulfides, they're a metal combined with sulfur. Examples, pyrite, fool's gold, and galena. These mineral groups aren't just geology vocabulary, they're economic and social drivers. Sulfide minerals are especially important here because many valuable metals like copper, gold, and cobalt come from them. Unfortunately, sulfide mining can also cause serious environmental damage if not managed carefully. Again, usefulness and risk often come together. Let's take a moment to review some of the main properties that you would use to identify minerals. You have color and streak. Color, of course, the most inaccurate, not the most reliable way. But if you would powder it, do a streak test, that color can be diagnostic. You have luster, just how light reflects off the surface. You have hardness, which is the resistance to scratching, that Mohs scale. And then cleavage and fracture, how a mineral breaks. The same properties that make minerals valuable, including conductivity, hardness, resistance to corrosion, are what make them desirable for industry. These properties don't just shape technology, they shape global demand. And wherever demand concentrates, pressure follows on land, ecosystems, and people. Throughout history, access to mineral resources has shaped wealth and power. Nations rich in minerals often become critical players in the global economy, but that doesn't mean their citizens benefit equally. In some cases, mineral wealth has actually destabilized regions rather than improved them. Minerals can be thought of as a driving force of development and economy through four ways. With raw materials for industries, these minerals provide the essential building blocks for countless industries. And then that's going to create jobs. Mining and mineral processes in these industries provide employment for millions of people worldwide, including geologists, engineers, miners, and processing plant workers. And then you have trade and commerce. Minerals are traded globally, contributing significantly to international commerce and economic growth. And then in these companies, you have investments. Exploring for new mineral deposits and the development of mining projects attracts significant investment, further boosting economic activity. If we take a closer look at raw materials for industries, let's start off with construction. You need steel. Well, that comes from iron ore. Concrete from limestone. And gypsum for drywall, which we mentioned earlier. These are crucial for buildings, roads, and other infrastructure. In manufacturing, you got aluminum from bauxite, copper from chalcopyrite, and various alloys are used in everything from cars and airplanes to your household appliances. With electronics, we mentioned silicon from quartz. Copper, gold, and rare earth elements are vital for computers, smartphones, and other tech devices. And then energy, uranium for nuclear power, coal, and minerals used in renewable energy technologies, such as lithium for batteries and rare earth elements for wind turbines, are essential for energy production. It's important to acknowledge something honestly here. Even sustainable technologies require mining. Batteries, wind turbines, solar panels, they all rely on lithium, cobalt, copper, and other rare earth elements. So sustainability isn't about avoiding mineral use. It's about responsible sourcing and accountability. We can also look at the relationship between minerals and the development of societies as well. Think technological advancement. This progress relies heavily on minerals. From the Bronze Age to the Silicon Age, minerals have driven innovation and shaped human civilization. In the realm of agriculture, minerals like phosphate and potash are used in fertilizers, which are essential for increasing agricultural productivity and feeding a growing population. In healthcare, minerals are used in medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and even dietary supplements, contributing to advancements in healthcare and everyday life. From the salt we eat to the jewelry we wear, minerals are present in countless aspects of our daily lives, enhancing our comfort and quality of life. As societies develop, mineral demand increases, not decreases. This means global demand is often driven by wealthier nations, while extraction happens in the poorer ones. This imbalance sets the stage for conflict minerals. Now we shift to the dark side of minerals. Conflict minerals are natural resources extracted in conflict zones and sold to finance armed groups. The trade in these minerals fuel regional instability and human rights abuses. Geology plays a crucial role in understanding the origin, distribution, and extraction of these resources, as well as developing sustainable alternatives. Conflict minerals are not inherently different minerals. What makes them conflict minerals is where and how they're mined and where the money goes. In some regions, mineral profits fund armed groups. It prolongs violence and undermines stability. This isn't accidental. It's a result of weak regulation, extreme poverty, and the global demand. For example, coltan. It's the ore of tantalum. It's essential for capacitors in smartphones, laptops, gaming consoles. Without it, smartphones and laptops wouldn't function the way we expect. The demand for these electronics have led to a surge in coltan mining. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, coltan mining often occurs in dangerous, informal mines. Workers may earn very little, work in unsafe conditions, and have no protections. The same device that connects us to the world may be indirectly connected to exploitation on the other side of it. The DRC is rich in mineral resources, but decades of conflict and corruption have created a humanitarian crisis. Armed groups control mines, exploiting workers, including children, and using the profits to fund their activities. So even though the DRC is one of the most mineral-rich countries on Earth, it is also one of the most politically unstable as well. The contrast, it's not a coincidence. When mineral wealth flows outward while costs stay local, conflict becomes more likely. This is sometimes called the resource curse. Imagine going to work with this guy, not only protecting your workplace, but monitoring you. Mining affects real people, families, communities, children. Not only are adults working, but often children as well. Environmental damage means polluted water, lost farmland, and health problems. These impacts don't show up on product labels, but they are very, very real. And then we can shift to the environmental costs of mining. The mining practices in conflict regions, they're often unregulated and destructive, leading to deforestation, soil erosion, water pollution, and habitat loss. The land remembers mining long after profits are gone. Open pits, tailing piles, acid mine drainage, these scars can last for generations. Just look around where we live here in Garrett County and you see areas with orange streams. It's the memory of coal mining. And when mining is done irresponsibly, communities are left with damage they didn't choose. And conflict minerals are not just local, it is a global problem. This map illustrates regions around the globe that have valuable mineral sources and mining. And the demand for these minerals are on a global scale. So there's the supply chain you can't ignore. A mineral can be mined in Africa, processed in Asia, assembled elsewhere, and then sold here in the United States. That distance makes responsibility easy to ignore, but impossible to escape. So what can help? Well, companies can begin tracing their supply chains to ensure that minerals are sourced responsibly, them doing their due diligence. And then you can have certification programs that identify mines that meet ethical and environmental standards. It's also important that we develop recycling programs where we are recovering valuable minerals from electronic waste. And then we need to educate consumers about the issue. We need to raise awareness. None of these are perfect and a cure-all for all the issues, but they matter. Change happens when demand, policy, and science align. In other words, the realms of science and non-science working together. Now, how do geologists play a role in all of this? Well, geologists aren't just resource finders, they're problem solvers. They explore to find new, ethically sourced mineral deposits. The deposits need to be developed using environmentally responsible extraction techniques or sustainable mining. They also work to improve methods for recovering minerals from waste or recycling technology. Ethical exploration, sustainable mining, and recycling technologies all rely on geology. This is where earth science becomes social responsibility. Minerals are essential for our modern world, but their extraction must be done ethically and sustainably. We all have a role to play in ensuring that the benefits of minerals do not come at the cost of human suffering or environmental destruction. Every modern convenience carries a hidden story. The understanding minerals means understanding those stories and our role in them. The goal isn't guilt. The goal is awareness, responsibility, and better decisions moving forward. Minerals connect us, physically and ethically, to people we may never meet. Understanding that connection is the first step towards using Earth's resources wisely.